The world awoke to the thunder of war as a new day began under the shadow of conflict. Across continents, millions were jolted from sleep by the blare of emergency alerts and the distant rumble of explosions, signaling that a long-feared confrontation had finally erupted. In the dead of night, the United States unleashed a wave of devastating airstrikes on Iran's most sensitive nuclear facilities, shattering the uneasy calm that had gripped the region for weeks. Elite B-2 Spirit bombers, flying under the cover of darkness, targeted the heavily fortified sites of Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan. Using advanced bunker-buster bombs, they aimed to cripple Iran's nuclear program at its very core, sending shockwaves through the global security landscape. President Trump swiftly confirmed the operation, addressing the nation and the world. He called it a decisive blow against Iran's nuclear ambitions, declaring that America would not stand by as threats grew unchecked. The attack came after weeks of mounting tensions, failed diplomatic efforts, and a series of provocations that pushed both nations to the brink. The world watched as negotiations broke down and the specter of war loomed ever larger. Key allies, including Israel, were notified only moments before the strike began. This last-minute warning underscored the deep strategic partnership between the U.S. and its closest partners, united in their determination to counter Iran's nuclear ambitions. The White House insists that the goal is not regime change, but rather to force Iran back to the negotiating table from a position of undeniable strength. Officials emphasize that diplomacy remains possible, but only if Iran recognizes the consequences of defiance. These strikes were intended as a sharp and unmistakable warning. Cross the line, and there will be consequences. The message was clear. The United States is prepared to act decisively to protect its interests and those of its allies. For now, no further strikes are planned. The administration hopes that this single, powerful blow will be enough to alter Tehran's course, and that Iran will reconsider its path before more destruction follows. Around the globe, people anxiously watch live news feeds, markets react with volatility, and families gather in public spaces, uncertain if this bold gamble will restore stability or ignite a wider conflict. President Trump is set to address the nation, promising peace through strength and assuring Americans that every measure is being taken to protect their security. This attack marks a dramatic escalation in a long, bitter conflict that has shaped the Middle East for decades. Each confrontation adds another layer to a history filled with mistrust, rivalry, and unresolved grievances. Across the region, cities brace for retaliation. Soldiers patrol tense streets, and civilians anxiously await the next development, fearing that the worst may still be to come. The world holds its breath, waiting for Iran's response. In Tehran, leaders convene in emergency meetings while citizens gather in the streets, their eyes fixed on government announcements and international headlines. This is a new and dangerous chapter in global affairs, one that could reshape alliances, redraw boundaries, and determine the fate of millions. The stakes have never been higher. In the immediate aftermath of the strike, Iran responded swiftly and publicly, downplaying the incident and claiming that only minimal damage had been inflicted on its facilities. Officials appeared on state television, determined to project an image of resilience and control, as they inspected the affected sites and reassured the public that operations would continue as normal. At the same time, Iranian authorities hinted at a possible intelligence leak, suggesting that sensitive information may have been compromised, which could have enabled the attack. This raised serious concerns within Iran's security establishment, fueling speculation and anxiety about internal vulnerabilities. Tehran's officials wasted no time in condemning the strike, calling it a desperate and reckless act by a weakened U.S. president seeking to assert power. In fiery speeches, they accused Washington of violating international norms and warned of consequences. Despite Iran's defiant stance, the world watched in alarm as news of the direct U.S. strike on Iranian soil spread rapidly. The unprecedented escalation sent shockwaves through global capitals, with leaders and citizens alike fearing what might come next. European leaders immediately urged restraint, calling for calm and diplomacy. Behind closed doors, they scrambled to prevent further escalation, convening emergency meetings at the United Nations and appealing to both sides to step back from the brink. Meanwhile, the US government sent a private message to Tehran, insisting that the strikes were limited in scope and not intended to provoke a wider conflict. American officials emphasized their desire to avoid all-out war, even as tensions soared. Now, the world waits anxiously. Will Iran choose to retaliate with direct military force, unleash its network of proxy groups across the region, or accelerate its nuclear program in response? Military analysts debate the possibilities, while soldiers across the Middle East remain on high alert. The fragile status quo has been shattered. Security has been tightened in major cities. Embassies are being guarded around the clock, and airports are on alert as every nation in the region braces for potential fallout. The future of peace in the Middle East now hangs by a thread, with diplomats racing against time to prevent a wider catastrophe. The world holds its breath, hoping that cooler heads will prevail. In Washington, the recent airstrikes have not only intensified the ongoing debate, but have also deepened the already sharp political divisions within the capital. The city is abuzz with urgent meetings, heated arguments, and a sense of uncertainty about the nation's direction. Republican leaders are quick to rally behind the president, praising his bold and decisive action. They argue that these strikes are a necessary step to halt Iran's nuclear ambitions and protect American interests abroad, framing the move as a demonstration of strength and resolve. Meanwhile, Democrats strongly condemn the strikes, calling them reckless, unconstitutional, and a dangerous escalation that could drag the country into a wider conflict. They warn that bypassing Congress undermines democratic checks and balances and sparks protests both inside and outside the Capitol. This fierce debate has reignited long-standing questions over the limits of presidential war powers versus congressional authority, with lawmakers demanding more oversight and accountability for military actions. The White House, for its part, stands firm, defending the operation as a legitimate act of self-defense and insisting that swift action was necessary to protect American lives and interests. However, the lack of unity in Washington sends mixed signals to both allies and adversaries around the world, leaving international partners uncertain about America's next moves and intentions. America's internal conflict and political infighting complicate its global strategy at a critical moment, making it harder to present a united front on the world stage. As the nation grapples with these divisions, the political battle at home may ultimately prove just as consequential as the one unfolding abroad, shaping the future of U.S. foreign policy and its role in the world. The Middle East teeters on the brink of war after the U.S. launches its latest strikes, sending shockwaves through the region. American troops stationed across the Gulf are now potential targets for swift Iranian retaliation, heightening fears of escalation. Iran's options range from direct military strikes to proxy attacks or sophisticated cyber warfare, keeping adversaries guessing. The effectiveness of the U.S. raid is under intense scrutiny. Was it a permanent setback for Iran, or merely a temporary blow? Diplomats scrambled to prevent further escalation, but tensions remain dangerously high and unpredictable. The fate of the region, and perhaps the world, depends on the next move made by key players. The story is far from over, and uncertainty looms large.